All right, here we go. Let's fuck it up. Let's. Is that a good intro to the show? No?
That's great.
All right, here we go.
All right. Welcome back to How to Invest in Commercial Real Estate. And we are back with another exciting topic today on how to ask people for money, right? So this is an interesting topic that we'll get into in a second. But first, it is
Distribution time.
Distribution time. That's right. So this quarter, Criterion set a record number. We sent out $308,500 this quarter for Q3. So I'm pretty proud of that.
Yeah, Precision Equity was well in excess of 600,000, almost 700,000. So we're over $1 million in distributions on investment every quarter.
Fantastic.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It is actually, I say it every 3 months. It's my favorite time of the year, and I get to have it 4 times a year where they lop a bunch of checks on my desk. And it's all the people that trusted us with their money. It's relatives, it's friends, it's coworkers. And I love signing those checks because I don't know of a lot of people that get to send their friends and family that much money every quarter. Yeah. I mean, it's pushing $2.5, $3 million a year that we send to people that we know and like that trusted us with their money, and it's awesome.
Yeah, just for Precision, $4 million a year for the 2 companies. It's fantastic.
It's pretty amazing. Yeah. It's pretty amazing. We just came off of a sale of the out parcels of Plaza West. We talked about that before, so I just want to mention that again. Another huge,
that was a home run, man.
I mean, massive home run. We bought the property in January, paid down $1.5 million in debt, and returned all of the equity in 8 months. Yeah. And we had no real intention of doing that. It was a possible upside note on it, and it worked. Yep. We're also about to come up on the sale of the Kitty Academy we developed with the Woodmont Company in Dallas. Yep. Also super exciting. We ended up selling that for, I think, $6.3 million. Nice. Best sales projection we had was like 5.8.
That's great.
And we're closing when? This week or next week?
We're supposed to close this week.
Nice.
So probably next week, realistically.
And so checks will be coming out after that?
Checks will be coming out after that. Yep. We'll return all of the equity. We'll have a bit of profit. And then we have an acre of excess land that we didn't develop in contract, and that should close at the end of the year. And that's another $900,000 to the same investors. And it was only $1 million equity raise. So that's a decent amount of money in and out in 2 years. And another successful Kitty Academy development. That one was ground up. Yeah. But anyway, I mean, you mentioned types of investors. We have friends, family, colleagues, but there's starting to become a lot more than that, right? Like a lot of people are listening to the podcast, hitting us up. A lot of people have watched what, you guys have been in this a little bit longer than me. So they've seen a lot of your success over the past, 15 plus years. And we're starting to get a lot more people get involved in these deals. So today I thought it would be a super great idea to just go into how do you ask people for money? What are some things you need to have? What is a list that you can just go through and say, okay, the Criterion Fund guy said, or if we have this list, we can go ask people for money. So let's just dive into that. What are some of the top things that you need to have ready before you go ask people for money?
My personal opinion is if someone was watching a podcast and said, hey, I think I'm interested, I'm getting to that point, and I want to know a little bit about Criterion, the first thing I think they do is they look for a website. That's what I do. So so my opinion is that's what a potential investor is going to do. What do you guys agree with that?
I mean, if I was a podcast listener, I'd be doing some R&D, some rip off and duplicate. And that's arguably why we started this podcast, right? I mean, our first goal in the beginning was we need to create a presence of who is Criterion, what is Criterion doing, what is the mission of Criterion. And now you can go to our website. We have several websites. We have a podcast. We have a YouTube show, all of this stuff. And you can learn on your own time without ever meeting us or without ever talking to us who Criterion is and what we're about.
Yeah, you don't need all that, I wouldn't say. But I think a professional looking website is important.
Yeah, the key is establishing credibility. That's going to be the number one key to getting people to part with their money. And yes, a podcast would be great. Write a best-selling book, that'd be great. But the cheapest and quickest way to doing it is to get a website up, because that is so affordable, and it can be done in a matter of days using some of the templates, using a personal assistant or whatever to get it up there. And then you have instant credibility on some level. Yeah. It's going to take more than that. But if you don't have that, they're going to ask questions. And so what we're trying to do is help you guys, give you the confidence to go to people. When I think back before we started taking investor dollars, we could have done it earlier, but I was self-conscious about it. we didn't have a big presence. I didn't really know. I didn't want to get rejected. And so some of these things will give you the confidence if you can take the time to put them in place in order to go to the people you know and ask them for money because you have some of these steps already implemented.
Yeah,
so
I agree with that. If I'm in front of an investor or I'm talking to them on the phone or something and I can say, well, yeah, go to our website, check it out. We've got all this information on there. I think that helps a lot.
So easy first step is get a website. There's plenty of websites you can copy from. Get some information on, a cool bio that you have ready to go and what properties you like and what your goals are and what's your investing strategy, all that. Put that on there and I guarantee it'll help.
And don't overcomplicate it. We have 5 reasons why you should invest in commercial real estate on our website. And it's like the most basic thing in the world.
It's kind of where we started. That was one of the first things we threw up there.
Yeah. All right. Sticking with the providing investors confidence theme is a track record.
Yeah.
Let them know what your track record is. You can have it on your website or you can just, you can have notes or a brochure or something, but they want to know, have you done deals before and how did those go?
Yeah. And maybe it doesn't have to be a deal because a lot of people are saying, well, I don't have any deals. This is my first deal.
Right.
I think a track record could be, well, like Braden, he worked for a commercial real estate company first and did a lot of these things that are necessary to have had his own company. And so that could be a track record. Or maybe you just flipped houses or something, or maybe you had some houses, single family homes that you rented out or something. That could be a track record, I think.
Yeah, I would say test the market. Obviously you need to have something. If you don't have a real estate license, if you've never worked for a real estate company, if you've never invested in real estate and you've never had any partners that have invested in real estate and you're just winging it, nobody's going to give you any money, right? So think about yourself being on the other side and say, what would I want somebody to have in order for me to invest this amount of money? And just
could
go
you borrow someone's track record?
100%.
Like, could you say, hey, I've got a good friend and he's purchased this exact multi-tenant strip center or one very close to it. And here's how that deal went. And give them several examples of exactly the one that you're pitching them. Could they get comfortable with someone else's track record?
I mean, I'm just going to shamelessly talk about myself. If you go to our website and look at the bio, it says I've closed all these transactions. I own like less than a third of those, right? The rest of them are your guys's from when I worked at Precision. Brian is a very similar story, right? Like Brian's invested in a ton of real estate deals. He's been involved in numerous amounts from the beginning to the end, had a lot of acquisitions and exits. So yeah, you can't just say I have no experience because you weren't the one who signed the closing statement. Like you have to be practical about this and not lie, but just realistically say, hey, we've been involved in these transactions. Here's how it works. Here's what I've learned. Here's the people on my team, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's probably, it's better if you have your own, but it's probably enough. People want examples of the deal you're pitching them and how it's worked in the past and can it work for them? And so I don't think it has to all be your particular one. If you could show them and demonstrate how this particular real estate does this return and has the chance to deliver this kind of money to them, I think that could be enough.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, and if it's not, right, go to somebody who's done it and say, hey, everyone told me they wouldn't give me money because I don't have enough experience. You seem to have a lot of experience. Can I give you some equity and some money so you're a partner in the deal and we can use your experience and maybe you can help me? Mm-hmm. I'd look at a deal like that if somebody brought it to me.
Yeah, for sure. So don't let the track record be a barrier to you. You can definitely use that strategy, bring on a partner, a lot of different ways to do it.
What's next?
Well, you want to be able to tell these people how they're going to make the money, right? How much it's going to cost or depending on how much they want to invest, where the money's going, what kind of income they're going to make, what the exit strategy is, right?
So we call that a pro forma in our business. And it's kind of like an offering memorandum on a sales a property that's for sale.
Yeah.
It gives details about the project. It shows the money in, it shows the income, the expenses, and the money out, and how long of a time period that is. You're basically showing the investor, hey, this is what I'm going to do with your money, and this is when you're going to get it back, and this is the return you're going to make. That's the pro forma. You have to give them a story and show them, draw them a path from the date I invest to the date I get my money back. How does that happen? What's happening in between? So they see that path.
Yeah, that, like you said, it just gives you credibility. You can't just say, oh, well, if you invest this much, I'm going to give you a 20% return. They want to see the path. How are they going to get that?
Here's how to not get credibility, and it's to make the path so confusing that you think you're beefing yourself up with your credibility and using all these fancy words, but nobody can understand it, right? Mm-hmm. Money in, Income, expenses,
Right.
money out, time frame.
Yeah.
That's what we need. Let them ask questions and fill in the blank. Hey, where's this income coming from? I'll send you a rent roll. I'll send you more detailed information. Start basic, guys. Most people's level of understanding when they're reading through something like this, they don't want to read through an income statement. That's a sheet. It's a few lines.
It definitely can be too extensive, too confusing. It can also be too simple.
Yeah.
I've had people that have pitched me really high returns, but at the end of the meeting, I didn't know how I was going to get those returns. And it can't just be magic. It can't be their word for it. I have to understand where the money's going and how it's producing that return. It doesn't have to be complicated, but that's what the pro forma is. If you have any questions on that, we can give you some examples of the ones we use.
You just test it. Go ask a banker. Go ask, your father or your uncle or somebody, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. Does it make sense? Yeah, I get it. If your dad can get it, I bet an investor can.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, next.
Well, to me, I would think that the next logical sequence that an investor might be thinking is, okay, this is kind of your first deal. You've got some experience, but I want to make sure I'm not being scammed. So I want to see something written down that says what's going to happen in case something goes wrong. So I want to see some legal documents, right?
Wait, I don't just wire you $50,000 and you just like hand write a receipt. Thanks.
Right.
Yeah, amazingly, some people will part with their money over that. They never spend any amount of time thinking, what if it goes wrong? And that's where the legal documents come in, is they hold the person accountable to make sure they do what they say they're going to do. Now, if everything works out, nobody cares.
Yeah, right.
But in the event it doesn't work out, and let's say they lost your money, if there's nothing written down, if there's no legal documents, then you just lost money.
Yeah.
And there's no recourse you can take besides he told me he was going to do something and he didn't do it.
Yeah.
But these legal documents are going to give them a pathway to make sure that everybody knows what the sponsor's supposed to do, how and when the money's going to be paid back, and what happens if it doesn't. And the sponsor could die. I mean, they could have a health problem. You never know what's going to happen. And so you need to have the legal framework in place when you're going to go ask people for their money.
It also gets rid of a lot of that swindler risk that Neil Stenzel was on and talking about, because it shows that they had the due diligence time to prep those, the money to prep those. They had a legal team to prep them. They could be prepping them in their favor, or they could still be badly written. But that's a whole different thing. Most people are just trying to scam you out of their money. Don't put the time and effort to form hundreds of pages of legal documents to have you fill out before they take your money, right? That doesn't make sense. So it gives you a lot of credibility when you provide that. Hey, I'm going to send you some documents in DocuSign. Read through them. If you have any questions, let me know.
There's one document you're not going to be able to get around, and that's the operating agreement. The operating agreement is the instruction booklet for the LLC or the company that the sponsor is forming, and it will outline everybody's obligations with respect to that investment.
Now, will you have that done before you start hitting people up for money necessarily?
Maybe not 100% complete at this stage of our fundraising purpose, because we know it's not going to be an issue, and they've seen our operating agreements. And
but you got to have it.
You got to have it in the works, at least a timeline.
For sure, before the deal closes and before you take the money, you should have it.
Okay, before you expect their money. Yeah, give them a week to sit on it.
There are other documents if you're doing a formal syndication where you'll need to do additional documents, and an attorney can help you with that. Subscription agreement, private placement memorandum.
There we go.
And so you can consult an attorney for those documents.
So maybe what you could tell an investor is, I'll have those legal documents for you. I have some. I'll have the rest of them before you send the money. Those legal documents will be there. You'll sign them. And you can send the money.
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
All right, let's keep going.
Okay. Well, the next question, or a question I get asked every single time, we all get asked every single time, is how much skin in the game do you guys have? How much are you guys going to put in? Right?
I love this one.
Yeah.
Well, lucky for our investors, we always invest our own money into our deals. I'm never going to take someone else's money without putting my own money on the line for them. So
such a nice guy, John.
Yeah, I am a nice guy.
So somebody has to be willing to co-invest, and they have to have the money to co-invest, right?
Yeah. So let's break that down. I want to be real specific on the co-invest, because it's misleading, and a lot of sponsors are smart about how they do this. So they say they put in their co-invest, like let's just call it a 10%. 10%, 10 to 20 is kind of the industry norm, I would say, of minimum co-invest to show that you're
serious about it.
But it's got to be net of their fee, right?
Oh, right.
So if they're getting $500,000 in fees and they're only investing $100,000 back into the deal, are they really investing anything?
Yeah,
Probably not. So I would just make sure that, okay, what are your fees in this deal? When do you get paid? How do you get paid? So our documents, we always invest more than the fees we take. Most of our money is earned after we give an investor the first 8%. So we're putting all of these hurdles in place to make sure the investor feels protected, that we're not just making all of this money and giving them a crappy return. Like we have to give them what we would consider a good return before we really make any money on the deal. And again, that's spelled out in our legal documents.
Yeah, it'd be bad if you were pitching an investment and you were getting a non-recourse loan, so there was no harm to you if the deal didn't work. You didn't invest any money and you took several $100,000 in fees to set up the deal. Well, that's a no-lose for the sponsor. Right. So now she's encouraged to not really care as much about the final returns of the investment. And you don't want that kind of situation. You want the sponsor to have something to lose and have her own money invested in the deal.
Yes, let's just talk about that since you brought it up, the non-recourse thing. Non-recourse debt means that the lender, or whoever gave you the money, will not come after and sue you for the balance of the debt. They will just take back the property. Is my understanding on that?
That's pretty close. Yep.
Pretty close. So you need to ask them where they're getting the debt. Are they fully guaranteeing the debt? Or is it non-recourse debt? Or who's guaranteeing the debt? Are you liable for the debt? Just some good questions to ask and be ready to answer.
That's our next point is before I give someone money, I'm going to want to know that they have the debt secured, because a lot of times the deals can fall out. They can not work if they can't secure that loan. So you don't want to hand over the money. You want to know that they have that loan is in place, or at least has a pre-approval letter, not a pre-approval, a loan commitment. Mm-hmm. And so that deal is going to happen, that she's able to get the debt. Will the bank take their signature in order to loan those funds?
So as an investor, you wouldn't, or as when we hit up an investor, we want to be able to say, okay, we've got this loan, it's secured, because an investor is going to say, well, what if you don't have it secured, and then all of a sudden it comes time for money, the deal changes, I'm getting less, and then I've got to decide at the last minute, well, do I really want to be in on this deal? So if you've got the lending secured, then that makes them feel more comfortable.
Yeah, and the debt can severely change the returns.
Yeah,
and the thing is, on these deals, they're not the returns aren't guaranteed. They're just a pro forma based return.
Sure. I get people that ask that. Wait, so an 8% preferred return? So I get 8%. Like, no,
it's not guaranteed. Now we work really hard to meet it, but if they don't have the debt secured, and they've told you some numbers, but then the debt changes, now you've given them their money, but instead of making 12%, you may make 9% or 8% or something. Right. And they're not really obligated to say, well, I have to pay you that 12, because the deal just is going to make what it makes. So it's just a step to have that debt secured. That'll give the investors comfort that you're pitching, that you've got that deal locked up.
Yeah. Especially now more than ever, right? I mean, if you talk to a lender and get a rate, the rate changes the day after. Yeah. Everyone's quoting spreads now just because with the indexes that they're quoting on are just moving constantly. Mm-hmm. So the debt now is more important than ever.
We got one more, and this obviously isn't an exhaustive list. There's probably plenty of additional things, but we just tried to condense a short list. What's the last one, Brian?
Well, if I was an investor, I'd want to know who's involved. Besides, if one person hits me up, what's your team? What's your management team? Who's going to do what? You laid out this path of things that are going to happen. This seems like a lot for one person to do. So I'd want to know that there's a team behind you, whether it's a legal team or whatever.
Yeah, for us, we were thinking on this one, let's say I'm pitching an apartment complex deal and I'm pitching a return. Well, if it's 300 units, I'm not obviously going to do the maintenance and the leasing and the management.
Exactly. Yep.
And so they're going to want to know, hey, Joel, what if you get sick or what if you disappear? Who's managing this thing? How do I get my money back? And, most likely if you're beginning your career, you're going to have a third-party manager. You're going to go and hire a apartment management company or a retail management company, and they're going to manage it for you. But if you have that in place and you have that team in place that investors can go and ask, hey, how is this deal? Have you managed similar properties before? Is this a good location? What do you feel about the rents? All these questions they can ask of the manager that you've hired to manage this deal, and they'll get a comfort for the deal.
Yeah, the manager is going to manage that for whoever. They would manage it for the receiver if you defaulted on the debt. They would manage it if you disappeared for whatever. I guess Joel disappears a lot.
Yeah, well, it's always an option.
When Joel disappears, the management company still works, right? They're going to do it for the property, and they're ultimately doing it for their fee, right? So they're not just going to stop because they don't get an email answer. They're going to continue to get those rent checks, deposit them, take care of the maintenance. And that's super important. I mean, as a general rule of thumb, I think we only invest in things that can be institutionally managed on some sort of, maybe not institutional, but managed by some other company so we can go do all of them.
Yeah, something could happen to any of us on any deal, and the deals are going to keep right on going.
Especially Brian. I mean,
if the deal doesn't work, hiring a management company, then I'm not as interested.
Yeah.
If someone has to run around and manage a multi-tenant retail deal all by themselves just to make the numbers work, well, at some point that person may make a mistake or may not be able to perform. And it's too slim. And it's much better to have a company involved in that. That way, if the manager takes another job or whatever, they can backfill that position and the property doesn't lose any steam.
Anyway, I think that was a pretty good list. 8, 9 items there that you should think about, that you should ask yourself, that you should come up with answers with, and take to that pitch meeting with you. Talk to the investor, and again, try to make it a little less formal. I think people go into this, and their biggest mistake is they have to have the money. They go into a meeting and they're like, man, if I don't get this money from this one dude, I don't get this one deal. You need to have the conversation way quicker than that. You can prep a lot of these things, or you can put placeholders in for a lot of these things. Have conversations like, man, if I bought a property like this, or use somebody else's property that bought, like, hey, if we could do something like this, put all these pieces together, would you be interested in that? Get a bunch of people who are interested, and then go make the final pitch. This isn't just a one meeting thing. People can smell it at the table when they know you have to have that money.
What's our friend Zach say? The hungry never get fed.
That's true. Yeah.
So you don't want to be desperate for the money when you're pitching it. But go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think our low pressure tactic really works, right? Because I don't think people feel like we're desperate for money. We're just trying to help them.
But if you do want to give us some, go to the website. It's thecriterionfund.com. Hit join the investor list, and you'll get sent all of our deals. So super easy. And if you've enjoyed today's show, make sure to like and subscribe and ring the bell so you get notifications when we post.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks.